So when we're talking about this divine will, briefly, there are two types of wills. There's the permanent will and the contingent. We call that in Arabic al-ajal al-mahtum and al-ajal al-mu'allaq. Mahtum comes from the word hatmi, which means it's permanent, it's fixed, final. Allah has two types of wills. Some wills are permanent. They're not subject to changing. Like, for example, a very brief, simple example, the laws of the universe, the sun and the moon. Inshallah, if all people on earth get together and pray for the sun not to rise, it's going to rise. That's mahtum. Nobody can change that. It's mahtum. Some things in this life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has permanently determined. Death, that we die, not when we die, but death itself. That's mahtum.
Okay, so
no one can push death.
The number of the days is not.
Usually death, the day on which you die is not from the mahtum ajal. It's from the contingent one. So death itself, for example, that's mahtum. That's not to be changed. It's fixed. No amount of dua, no amount of good deeds can make you live permanently. We have to die one day. However, many of God's wills, they're contingent. When you die, how long you live, when you get sick, whether you deviate or you're guided, these actually go back to your deeds. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a contingent will. Zayd will die at age 30. Unless he gives charity, I'll extend it another 3 years. Another 30 years if he is good to his parents. Now the ball is in his court, in Zayd's court. He decides. If he doesn't pay that charity, the contingent will act upon him and he'll die at age 30. If he did actually give charity, it becomes 60. So we have a role in that. And we have many stories from the lives of the prophets, peace be upon them, that actually demonstrate this. The famous story of Prophet Isa alayhi salam, in which he passed by a newlywed couple. He told his Hawariyin, his disciples, you see them, they're so happy now and they're having a party. Not a haram party, but just a gathering. Tomorrow, you'll hear them crying. Because I believe one of them, either the bride or the groom, will die. So the next day, the Hawariyin are standing in that neighborhood. They're anxiously waiting. Nothing happens. The day passes, nothing happens. The sun sets. They're safe and sound. So they come to Isa alayhi salam, they tell him, "O Ruh Allah, what's going on? You're a prophet and you get your revelation from Allah. They didn't die, what's going on?" He said, "Let's go to their house and try to figure this out." They go to his house. Prophet Isa alayhi salam asks him, "Did you do something special last night?" He said, "Not really." It's like, "No, you must have done something. Tell me, what did you do last night?" He's like, "Well, last night when everybody left, it was the time for me and my wife to have dinner. That fancy dinner for that first night of your wedding. A poor man knocked on our door. He said, 'I'm hungry. I haven't eaten for 3 days. Can you give me the food?' Well, initially we hesitate, right? This is your special wedding food. But me and my wife, he said, 'No, it's okay. We can live without this food. Give it to him.' We gave it to him. Prophet Isa alayhi salam told them, 'Lift the bed. Let's see what's under your bed.' They lifted the bed. They saw a venomous snake under the bed. Prophet Isa alayhi salam said, 'I was informed that the contingent will of God was for this snake to sting you and kill you. Because you gave that sadaqah, that act of charity, Allah prevented that. Allah gave you a longer life.' They saw the venomous snake. This is Bada. In brief, this is Bada. And that's what the Shia really believe in. And basically, our deeds can change that. Many things, by the way. The timing of Imam al-Mahdi's reappearance. According to the hadiths, that also has to do with Bada. It's contingent on our deeds, especially the followers of Ahlul Bayt, or the world at large. The coming of the Imam, that's permanent. He will reappear. But the timing of it depends on our deeds. The more we do good deeds, the more we turn to the Imam of our time, the faster his reappearance will be. The more we neglect our duties towards our Imam, the more we sin, the more Allah will postpone it. That's an example of Bada. So believing in Bada is critical and highly, highly important. I'll share with you some hadiths. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says in the book of Kafi, "Ma ubida Allahu bishay'in mithl al-Bada." The best way to worship of God. There is no way to worship God better than believing in Bada. Because that's the source of hope. When you believe that God has given you the role to determine your fate. That's worship. That's worshiping a merciful, wise Lord. In another hadith, the Imam alayhi salam says, any prophet whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would send as a messenger, he would make sure that the prophet believes in three things. One of them is that we're slaves to Allah, we worship Him. Number two, we don't ascribe any partner to Allah. Number three, وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ يُقَدِّمُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيُؤَخِّرُ مَا يَشَاءُ. God can change His will. Every prophet had to believe in that. And then in a third hadith, the Imam alayhi salam says, if people knew how much reward there is in discussing Bada and having a conversation about Bada, they would never stop their conversations about Bada. Every time they gather, they'll talk about Bada and the deeds that can change your fate and how Allah has given you a role to change your fate. He says people would never stop. لو يعلم الناس ما في القول بالبداء من الأجر ما فتروا عن الكلام فيه. So this is the concept of Bada. I'll conclude with one short interesting story that shows how even when you plan, Allah has another plan. They say there was this man who was fed up with this life and he was so depressed to the point of suicide. He decided to commit suicide. I've heard this from a scholar. Apparently it's a true story. So he decided to kill himself. But he wanted to make sure, because many suicide attempts, they fail, right? He wanted to make sure that he ends up really killing himself. So he came up with 4 ways to end his life. First of all, he swallowed, 20, 30 pills that's supposed to kill you. He swallowed them. Then he went to a nearby river by his village. He did not know how to swim. So he's like, I'm going to go on top of this tree. There was a big tree. One of the branches of the tree were extending over the river. So he went on the branch and he said, I'm going to strangle myself on this branch and beneath me is the river. So that if I fall in the river, I'll drown. I've got 30 pills to kill me. I'll strangle myself, hang myself. And he took a gun with him. He said, if nothing works, I'll just shoot myself. So 4 ways. Literally, right. What happened? He went on the tree. He tied his neck. He jumped from the branch. Now, he's getting strangled. He's hanging himself. So he took out the gun to shoot himself to make sure that he dies. Now, when you're suffocating, you struggle, right? You can't keep your balance. So he's shooting himself. He shot the rope. When he pulled the trigger, instead of shooting himself, he shot the rope. What happened? He fell into the river. There were 2 people walking by the river. They saw a man falling into the river and drowning. So they come, they rescue him. Now, as he was drowning, he was swallowing all that water. So when they took him out of the river, they're doing that operation on him. All of the pills come out from his stomach. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saves him. He does not drown. He didn't shoot himself. The strangling didn't work. The pills didn't work. That's Bada. He must have done something in his life, some good deeds, the dua of his parents, something that saved him from this. 4 ways to end your life, and it didn't work. That's the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.